Welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa Caprio. Do you believe in magic? What if you were told that all you had to do was get a little creative and work a magic spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Here on Postcards to the Universe, we will share manifesting, tips, postcards, creativity, abundance, and prosperity. Here is your host, Melissa Caprio.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa, creating the life you crave. It's Wednesday. It's my favorite weekday because I get to do my show, and I love doing my show, and I always have really cool guests, which I have a great guest again today. She's an author, Jennifer Moore, and she's going to join me in just a few minutes, and we're going to be talking about empathic mastery and what that means, so stay tuned for that. So you guys who are my regular listeners, welcome. Thank you again for being here with me, and I love that you like my show and you keep coming back and listening. It really, really means a lot. And if you're just listening and finding me for the first time, I want to say welcome. I'm so grateful to have you here, and I hope that you keep coming back. And if you can't listen live, you can always catch the show after it airs on a replay. So just a little bit about me. I'm an artist, a photographer, and I am also an author, and I have a book out, and it's titled Postcards to the Universe, Harness the Universe's Power and Manifest Your Dreams. Everything that I do is under Postcards to the Universe, and there are 30 manifesting stories in my book. So I laid it out where I had people create a manifesting postcard, which is kind of like a little mini vision board, and I photographed their postcard. I interpreted it and I photographed it, and it's their manifesting story is alongside of their postcard. So it was really fun laying out the book. And in my book, I include writing exercises, and the writing exercises I wanted to put in because it helps us get really clear on what it is we want, what we desire, what we want to manifest. And we're not always quite sure what exactly that is. Usually we just know how we want to feel, right? So we need to get clear on what it is we want that will help us get to where we want to be in our life. And there's also a toolbox full of just some fun exercises on how to manifest in love and in money and career and health and so much more. So if you are interested in people's stories and reading their stories of how they manifested what they wanted and doing some inner work exercises, you can get my book at your favorite bookstore. They'll get it for you if it's not in their bookstore, or of course you can get it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble online. All right, so I always ask each week, and I will keep asking for people to send me a manifesting postcard. If you want to know what that is and how to do it, if you go to www.postcardstotheuniverse.com, there is a section on how to create a manifesting postcard, and you can also email me if you have any questions. I'm always answering people's emails, so that's not a problem. If you're on Facebook and you like Facebook groups that are fun to join and uplifting, I have one called Postcards of Love. It's public, and only things that are shared on there are inspiring and uplifting posts. So I just wanted to share, I got a confirmation that I'm going to be doing a workshop. It looks like it's going to start in the middle of July. I will give more information as I go. And the workshop is called Manifesting Through Gratitude, a Visual Journey. And it's going to be a 5-week workshop. We're going to meet once a week for 2 hours on Zoom. It's not Zoom, but it's like Zoom. It's online. And we're going to be covering using visual gratitude practice. And by doing that, we're going to be using our camera phones as part of the practice to get us into the alignment with the energy of abundance. So each week is going to be focused on a different area of our life. In the first week is going to be worthiness and self-love. Second week is going to be health and wellness. The third week is financial abundance. And we're going to wrap up with relationships and I'm going to teach everybody how to create a photo-inspired visual gratitude journal. And we're going to be doing that and going over it. And then the 5th week is going to be a wrap-up where we can get together and share our feelings, what came up for us, and, you know, how some people's stuff has shifted and what actually manifested in that time period. So I'm super excited about it. When I get, like I said, when it's 100% confirmed and I have the date and I have exactly where you can go and register, I will share all that. But I'm just starting to introduce it to you now. So the guys who listen to me on a regular basis know I talk about a magical message that I share on social media that I share once a week, and it's an image of a manifesting postcard or something that I found, like an affirmation that I picked up, or just anything that sort of inspires me. So this week I picked Harness the Universe, which is also in manifesting, of course, and it is one of, I believe, and I've seen it work, the universe's greatest forces. And it's our ability to create something that we think out of nothing. And when we learn to harness the universe and the power of manifestation, we can learn to co-create and create the life we dream of. So manifestation, for those who are hearing this word for the first time, is bringing our desires into reality. And it works by aligning our thoughts, our emotions, our actions with our desired outcome. And the more aligned we are with our desire, the more likely it will manifest. And the universe, in kind, responds to our energy and what we become aligned with. And it magically, quote unquote magically, but what we're really doing is we're co-creating, it appears in our life. So that was this week's magical message. Let's all harness the universe and bring in what we want. Okay, so I'm excited to talk to my guest today. She's really interesting, and I'm really interested in empathy and empathic. So I was really excited that she wanted to be on my show. So just a little bit about her. Jennifer Elizabeth Moore, I love that she says this. I love it. Former emotional hot mess and world-class awfulizer, Jennifer Moore supports other highly sensitive, intuitive women to release empathic overwhelm and distress so they can access their inner wisdom and power. Jen brings over 30 years of experience to her work, where she merges practicality, intuition, and skill to offer insight, guidance, and emotional freedom to those she serves. She holds a master's degree in psychology and religion. She's an accredited master trainer for EFT International, and I've talked about EFT on my show before. She's the founder of the Empathic Mastery Academy, the author of Amazon bestseller Empathic Mastery, the host of Empathic Mastery Show, and is the creator of 2 Oracle decks and the Photographic Healing Tarot. So if you want to learn more about her, go to her website, empathicmastery.com. Welcome, Jennifer. Thanks for being here with me today.
Oh, Melissa, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be having this conversation with you today.
I believe I am empathic, and I'm an empath. But so for those who kind of know what it is, but aren't really quite sure, because you can be sensitive and not a full-on empath, and
absolutely
right, and you can have empathy but not taking on others' emotions. So I'm going to let you, as the expert, explain the difference between being empathic and having empathy, or just being super sensitive. So go ahead.
Absolutely.
Take it from there.
Okay. So let's just start with the definition of the word empath. And so first off, let's just start with the fact that there isn't necessarily a agreed upon definition of the word empath. Okay. It's a pop. So empath is not a clinical term. It is a pop culture term that came out of science fiction. And basically, back in 1956, there was a science fiction novella called The Empath, where everything started with this Scottish writer, J.T. Mackintosh, who wrote this book. And then the next time that we even had having anything to do with empaths was on Star Trek in 1968, I think, maybe 69, with an episode called, you guessed it, The Empath. And it wasn't until actually a lot later when we started to really see examples of empaths in things with Deanna Troi in Star Trek: The Next Generation, and people started to think about it. Like, this started to be where we started to, as a culture, be like, oh my goodness, I'm an empath, I'm experiencing this. So I'm just going to share my definition of the word based on what I've seen with a lot of people and just kind of have drawn from this. So an empath is a being, not necessarily a human, but a being who picks up the thoughts, the feelings, the energy, and the sensations from outside of themselves. And unlike somebody who is like an intuitive or a psychic with a lot of extrasensory perception abilities, empaths have that ESP as well. Mm-hmm. But what makes an empath different than somebody who's intuitive or psychic is that empaths process the information and the energy and the feelings and the thoughts as if it's their own. Mm-hmm. And so, for example, you know, a psychic or an intuitive could walk into a house where there had been some kind of a conflict or situation, and they'd immediately be like, wow, there's some really weird vibes in here. This feels really intense, feels really sad in here. It seems like somebody must have had, like, maybe there was a death, you know, oh, there was a death in here, or, oh, there was like a conflict or a fight or a murder or whatever. The psychic or the intuitive is going to be like, I know something happened here. The empath walks into the same exact space and goes, why do I feel so sad? Why do I feel so angry? Why do I feel so out of sorts? And the thing is that, you know, being an empath and being an intuitive or psychic are not mutually exclusive. As a matter of fact, almost all empaths do have psychic or and intuitive abilities. But interestingly, not all psychics and intuitives are empaths. And you know, you spoke about sort of the difference of like, well, what is highly sensitive? What is what is empathic? What's an empath? And what I would say is that there is a spectrum of sensitivity that sort of, you know, on one side you have people who are just like so totally like the psychopathic narcissists who have absolutely no regard for anybody, you know, and no understanding or compassion or you know, just like they cannot imagine themselves in somebody else's shoes. It's the me show 24/7. And then on the other side, we have what I call extreme empaths, where they are so flooded with all the thoughts, feelings, energy, and sensations that are coming from outside of themselves that they don't even necessarily know what end is up. They don't know what's theirs, what's not theirs, and a lot of times really struggle with a lot of anxiety, a lot of distress, a lot of fear, a lot of worry. A lot of times, a lot of chronic health issues can come up, as well as a lot of blocks to success because they're just so bogged down by all the intensity. And then, you know, in the middle is the sort of your nice person, somebody who has the capacity to like imagine what somebody else is going through and have compassion for that person, express kindness to that person, but where they're not getting flooded with the emotional intensity of that person. And what I would say is the big difference between having empathy for somebody versus being an empath is that empathy, you still know it's not your problem. You still know it's not you going through the thing. You can have a deep sense of empathy and understanding and imagine, like you can imagine yourself in that situation, but you're not experiencing it. Whereas somebody who is an empath is somebody who's sort of that empathic sensitivity has gone over from just pure empathy to like, I am picking it up and I am processing it as if it's my own. So long answer, but very thorough. Yeah.
Very thorough. That really, really, really helps. And I imagine, or at least my experience is, I seem to do that more with the people that I care about than with strangers. But sometimes I'll walk into a space and I don't know people very well. And whatever the vibe is, I feel it. And it does. And I'll feel the sadness, or I'll feel frustrated, or I'll feel the anger. And I'm like, why am I you know? Like, it's easy
Yeah.
to recognize it when I'm with people that I know intimately, right? Because if they're going through something, I'm feeling it. And that's why sometimes if somebody's so angry about some injustice, I feel so
Yes.
heated in my body, like, and it's not mine. It's not mine. And I don't know why. And then as I've gotten older and I've been studying more and I've been learning more about this kind of stuff, I realize, oh, you're empathic. You're very
Mhm.
empathic.
Mhm.
And I do
Mhm.
need a lot of time when I'm in a lot of chaos around a lot of people, a lot of recovery time. I need a lot of
Yes.
alone recovery time. Yeah,
Yes,
it's
and a
crazy.
lot of us really do, and
Mhm.
especially when we're not recognizing that we are
Mhm.
sensitive to picking things up. You were mentioning about how it can be harder when you're around or when you're around people you don't know to realize what
Mhm.
you're picking up on. And
Mhm.
one of the things that I've noticed is that I've had this experience over the years where I used to do, before, especially before the pandemic, when we were actually like gathering together and doing things a
Right.
lot more than we sort of we kind of dialed that back. But I used to do a lot of like sort of business mastermind, like entrepreneur, like transformational
Mhm.
entrepreneur things, retreats, events. And one of the things that I would always notice was that about a day or two into being at an event like this, all of a sudden I would start to experience like this like low self-esteem and this
Mhm.
kind of like self-doubt and this kind of
Interesting.
like feeling like I'm not good enough. And it took me a couple of these experiences and these events to realize, oh, wait a second, this isn't mine.
Mm.
I'm surrounded by people, especially like some of those big marketing, like those big,
Mhm.
like coaching events where, the whole premise of it is like you're introducing tools to people, but what they're also doing is teaching people what they don't know. And
Right.
there's this point where it's like about midway in the mid part of usually if it's a 3-day event, it's like the second day, what they start doing is what's called pushing the bruise.
Mhm.
And what happens is all these people who sort of are going to this thing are getting all of their what are called in the marketing world pain points activated. And suddenly people are just, you got this room of people who are like, oh my God, I don't know anything. And
Mm.
what I realized was that I didn't even notice it until I was like, wait a second. I'm picking up on other people's insecurities. I'm picking up on other people's sensitivities and the reason I say this is because it would be about stuff that I would already know. It would be about stuff that I'd already worked through. It would be about stuff that, the day
Mhm.
before I got there, I was feeling really confident and good about. And then all of a sudden it was like, and even on the first day, I'm still like cooking with gas. And it's that
Mhm.
second day where I'm suddenly like, why am I feeling so out of sorts? Why am I feeling so wonky? Why am I feeling so weird? So
Right.
I totally hear you about when you're around people you
Mhm.
don't know, sometimes you don't realize that you're picking it up in the same way that you can be picking it up from people you do know. And
Yeah.
for that matter, there are people who can be picking it up. There are empaths and sensitive people who are picking up the planetary distress. They can be
Mhm.
picking up
Yeah.
the energy from the animals, from the plants,
Mhm.
from the whole planet. So it's not necessarily just people that we're picking up, that we can be picking energy up from. And just to speak about that concept of the spectrum, some people are sensitive to the immediate environment and the people around them, but there are people who are so sensitive that not only are they picking up on things that are immediate, they're picking up on things that are happening on the other side of the planet.
Wow.
And there are people who are so sensitive that they can be picking up on things that are coming from the past, but also can be sort of feeling the shock waves from the future kind of coming back at us. And an example of that would be like 9/11,
Mhm.
where a
Mhm.
lot of people started feeling really off and really weird and like what's going to be happening prior to the actual event.
Wow, that is, oh my God. So this is such a deep dive that you could
It is
really
such a
go.
deep dive. I'm like, oh, just buckle up, Buttercup. We got all kinds of stuff to talk about here. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah, that's why my space is so sacred. I sage a lot. I do a lot of that in my home because if people are in and out of my house a lot, where I live in an artist community, so I have a lot of people coming in and out all the time. So I'm always
Ooh.
like staging, lighting candles and all this thing. And it's funny because my family knows now that I've learned more about myself, and I'm confident. I say no to a lot of things. No,
Mm-hmm.
I can't do this. No, and I'm sure people probably some think, oh, who does she think she is? She's not coming to this. She's not coming to this. But I just kind of know when I can handle it, and I know kind of when I can't. Now. And I don't feel
Yes.
guilty about saying no anymore, where I used to feel so guilty, like, oh, you can't say no. But now I say no problem.
Well, and yes, and saying no is just one of it's. I mean, that if it is definitely one of the most important tools in the empath toolbox is the ability to say no and to just be like. And one of my favorite sayings is "Not my circus, not my monkeys," as well as this person has a higher power in their life, and you're not it, Jennifer. But
Right. Yeah, that's good.
You were speaking about the whole thing of having that ability to say no. And one of the challenges that comes up for a lot of highly sensitive empathic people, especially when they're sort of in that spectrum of like being empaths, is that not only are they, does the people pleasing stuff come up, does the fear of disappointing somebody come up, but the thing is, as empaths, we feel when other people are disappointed. We feel when other people are upset.
Yeah.
But we also feel and pick up on people's will body and their desire body. And so a lot of times when somebody really wants something from us, we can feel that energy coming at us. And when it goes from just wanting something to being like somebody's trying to like will us to do something, we will feel that pressure coming at us from other people. And so saying no for an empath can actually be even harder than it is for your average people pleaser. Because the thing is, not only are we worrying about like the social consequences and the, oh my God, I'm going to hurt their feelings by saying no, or like, what will other people think of me if I say no? Like even you had said, like some people might think this about me. And it's like, there's that concern. But then on top of it, there's that as an empath, we will feel the pressure that is coming from that other person to do what they want us to do. And so we have to, it really takes like some nerves of steel and kind of like, like a real, like rock solid no. This is my no. I'm standing in my no. Not going to work for me. Not going to happen.
Yeah, and it's practice like anything else.
It is practice.
I have to ask you this question because the way you describe yourself and the way in your bio, you refer to yourself as a former hot mess and a world-class awfulizer. So what does that mean? Can you share what that was?
So, I mean, hot mess, we all know what that is.
Right.
I mean, I was a very, very emotional person. I really did not. I was one of those, especially as a younger woman and a teenager in my 20s and 30s. I was one of those people who was like, it's sort of like staple hand to forehead, drama queen. But also sort of like, stop the world, I'm having an emotion. Like, right. I didn't really have the ability to process things. I was also really attracted to emotionally unavailable people. And the reason I was attracted to emotionally unavailable people was because I had this identity of being this really romantic, really loving, really kind, really caring, really emotionally available, intimate person. And so I couldn't own any of the parts of me that wanted space. So what I did instead was I was attracted to people who created space for me and who allowed me to have the space I needed without me being the, quote, the bad guy, unquote. And so I was constantly chasing and pursuing people who are emotionally unavailable. I was self-medicating with sugar a lot, just trying to find, just trying to find my way. And, I was a handful. I no doubt about it. World-class awfulizer. This is a term that, I'm pretty sure I coined the term awfulizer. I'd never heard it before I started saying it, but maybe other people say it too. But it's exactly what it sounds like. It's like if you if you take a situation and you look at it, you know, the optimist is going to look at it and be like, oh my goodness, all of these things are possible. Isn't this wonderful? The awfulizer is going to take the exact same situation. And if you're talking like they get a little tiny splinter, you know, the awfulizer can take that little tiny splinter and turn it into like the worst antibiotic resistant form of MRSA that eventually kills you. Like it's like,
Right.
you know, it's not just a little splinter or a little boo-boo. It's like, oh my God, the world is ending, the sky is falling. And so I come from a long line of people who would always imagine the worst case scenario, who could always run the things through to the worst possible result. And you know, I just think about some of the experiences I've had with my parents, and you know, some of the times where I would be like, I'm going to go do this thing, and my dad would just be like, Jenny, you can't do that. And so much of it was because he and my mom both had a tendency to, if something was, they would always look through the glass darkly and imagine, not necessarily always, but frequently, would imagine the worst case scenario. And the problem with being a world-class awfulizer is that if you grow up in a family system that is constantly imagining the worst case scenario, you learn how to worry, and you learn how to awfulize, and you learn how to, like, and the thing is, it's under the guise of protection. It's under the guise of, well, I need to be prepared, so I need to think of the worst possible scenario. Right. And so this was something I really, really had to train myself out of. And basically, one of the things that I learned, or I've learned over the years, is instead of like being like, well, I better run all the numbers, I better run all the possibilities, I better run the data just in case. What I've learned to say to myself and do instead is to basically say, you know, okay, why don't we, like, so we're looking at this as it is. If anything comes up, we'll deal with it when it happens. And just that shift of, like, instead of trying to prepare for the worst case scenario, being like, I'm just going to go ahead as if this is going to be good. And if if something happens that's unexpected, I'll deal when it happens.
Right.
And
that's,
you know,
I don't mean to interrupt you, because we could get into this. Like,
we
so
could go into it. Absolutely, no worries.
Let's take our break right here, and then we're going to come back, and we'll just jump back in. So guys, stay tuned.
Awesome.
We'll be back in just a few minutes.
Conscious media for conscious minds. OMTimes.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. ascendinghearts.com.
Hi, I'm Melissa Caprio from Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave. Do you believe in magic? What if I told you all you had to do was get a little creative and work a dream spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Well, guess what? I've got the spell for you. Postcards to the Universe, a global movement for manifestation, is a casting magical tool for you to use whenever you want. How does living in passion sound to you? Join me in my movement where you get to create in the magical playground. Let's think outside the box and do some playful conjuring. By casting out our desires with a manifesting postcard, we explore our hearts and allow the alchemy of our dreams to appear. And don't forget to tune in each week here on OMTimes Radio with my show, Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I share tips on creativity, abundance, and prosperity, and you will be introduced to the coolest guests, trailblazers, mystics, and creatives who enrich our lives.
Imagine yourself being transported to India, to the banks of the Ganga and an ashram in Rishikesh. Visualize that you are welcome to satsang with an American sannyasi who shares the wisdom of her guru. Your visualization has manifested. Join Sattvi Bhagawati Saraswati for inspiration and transformation every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on OMTimes Radio.
Host your show on IOM-FM, the radio network of OMTimes Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of OMTimes. Hosting a show on IOM-FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community. The rainbow is God's promise of hope for you and me. And though the clouds hang heavy and the sun we cannot see, we know above the dark clouds that fill the stormy sky, hope's rainbow will come shining through when the clouds have drifted by. Teresa Caprio is the president and founder of Rainbow Guardian Inc., a nonprofit 501c3 serving the intellectually challenged / developmentally disabled, including autism. Teresa started the foundation in 1995 so she could help make a better life for her intellectually challenged daughter. Her dream is that the Rainbow Guardian will provide the necessary tools and education to help the public understand the special needs population, because it's often discarded in mainstream society. To find out more or make a donation in support, please go to www.rainbowguardian.org. Rainbow Guardian's special mission is to see these unique people live a happy, full life and have a future of liberty and equality.
Hey guys, welcome back. If you're just joining me, we're talking about empathy today and being empathic, and I have author Jennifer Moore as the expert on today. So you were talking about the way right before the break about how you used to sort of process things, and you said you called yourself very dramatic, and everything was like the worst case scenario, right? Like the house is like on fire every time for everything.
Every
right?
time.
Yeah,
Well,
see, I had mine was more of an internal. I'm a little bit more of an internal processor. A lot of people don't always know what was going on, so whatever my emotions were, if I was picking up on the sadness or the anger, it was an internal process. People didn't always know, Like I was very good at fooling people, like, oh, everything's okay. But meanwhile, it was simmering underneath,
Simmering underneath. I think sometimes because I was an empath, I assumed people knew what was going on inside. Like, I'm not sure. Like, for me, the experience was that I was a drama queen, and the experience was that I was, like, really, really, really emotionally intense. But I think that I'm not sure that everybody else always knew what I was going through or how emotionally upended I was. Like, I think that a lot of times, because I was feeling such intense feelings, I kind of imagined that other people could feel them or pick them up off of me. But I do, and I think sometimes that as empaths, we imagine other people know what we're feeling when other people don't necessarily know. So,
and then you think there's something wrong with you because you can't understand, like, what is wrong with me? Like, what is wrong with me, right?
Why am I feeling this way?
Right, and a lot of it isn't yours. It's not even yours that you're feeling it. It's crazy. Oh, my God.
It is crazy.
I have to ask you this, though, because I think this is really interesting, because I've heard this, God, so many times now, that there is an attraction between empaths, and narcissists, right?
Exactly.
The new buzzword is anybody does anything, they're a narcissist, right? So,
right.
So, but it is true that there does seem to be an attraction, but you talk about it a little different. So, what is that about? The narcissist.
So first off,
empath
and narcissist.
That would be a good movie, right? The narcissist and the empath.
Yes, exactly. Well, and they're actually, one of our fellow podcasters from Podmatch, Raven Scott, literally wrote a book called The Empath and the Narcissist, and has a show called The Empath and the Narcissist. You know, the thing, so from my perspective, I mean, so let's just talk about sort of basic definition of narcissist. You know, a narcissist is kind of on the other side of the spectrum, and that the narcissist is somebody who is, it's the me show. It's the 24/7, you know, did I talk about me yet? Have I told you about me? And it's all about what can you do for them? How are you going to glorify them? How are you going to get, you know, and how are they going to get their needs met? But the thing is that narcissists are generally extremely charming in the beginning. And the thing about narcissists is that narcissists know how to pour it on thick. Narcissists know how to love bomb. Narcissists know how to make you feel good. And the thing about the relationship between the empath and the narcissist is that at the beginning of the relationship, the narcissist is loading all kinds of praise and attention and you know, gifts and wonderful stuff on the empath. The empath is reflecting all of that back at the narcissist and is like giving back all kinds of love and affection. And you have this perfect like feedback loop of the empath picking up on all the happy, positive, wonderful feelings that the narcissist is experiencing from all the attention that the empath is giving. And the narcissist is just basking in the glow of all this attention. And so for a period of time, it is usually a match made in heaven. It is usually something that feels really, really good. Right. And the thing is that it often takes, like people will, most of the time, the empath and the narcissist will both be invested in the relationship where they both care about each other, they love each other, they want to be in this relationship with each other, before the red flags really start showing up, before the warning, before things start to go really sour or sideways. And what I've noticed happens very frequently when it comes to the dynamic of the empath and the narcissist is things go well until the empath has other priorities that take their attention away from the narcissist. And the thing about human behavior, and this is something I learned when I was in graduate school that was really amazing. So what's really fascinating about human beings is that it is actually more devastating and damaging to a human being to be what is called disconfirmed, to not receive any attention, to be neglected or abandoned, than it is to get negative attention. And so the narcissist is going to usually have a core wound of being ignored, neglected, or abandoned, usually that starts from a very, very early age. Like we're talking like a 3 or 5-year-old who didn't get their needs met. And so when the empath stops being able to shower all that affection and that praise and that attention on the narcissist, or the narcissist tolerance grows, because just like any other fix, any other addiction, the more, you know, it's like you get a tolerance to it. It's like you need more and more and more. So what ends up happening is the narcissist gets to the point where they're not getting the attention that they want or need, and so they start acting out. Because as human beings, we will do anything to get attention. And even if it's negative attention, getting negative attention is more like is energy still. Even if it's negative energy, it's still energy. And so as humans, we will seek out, if we can't get positive attention, we will seek out negative attention. And so that's when things usually start going sideways with the empath and the narcissist. And the thing is, the empath is usually like, what happened? What, you know, like everything was going so great. Why is this suddenly going so sour? And because the empath is now picking up all these, like all of this blame, all of this negativity, a lot of times the empath is going to be, what am I doing wrong? Why am I, like, what's happening here? And so and very frequently, I don't know if you've seen this, but I have seen very, very, very frequently, there are, by the time this dynamic really starts to go south and just go sideways, there are children involved. And so there's more of an investment in being in this relationship because there are kids. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
well, there's a quick question. So I want to be really careful because narcissism is a diagnosis and there's a whole, psychology behind it and stuff. It's different than people who are self-absorbed or just selfish. Because there are tons of us that have a tendency to be selfish at different times, whatever's going on in our life. Or maybe you're a selfish person, or maybe you're self-absorbed, but that doesn't make you a full-on narcissist.
Right.
So, and anytime we see selfish behavior now, we happen to get in the habit of calling that person a narcissist. And
Exactly.
and that's not the same thing. So can you just briefly give us a little description between somebody who's just very self-absorbed or selfish compared to somebody who's a full-on narcissist?
I think, like empaths, it is a spectrum. And that, that it is a spectrum. And that also, right now, the word narcissist is, like empath, is kind of out in the pop culture. And while you could certainly pull out the DSM-5 and read the clinical diagnostic definition of narcissistic personality disorder, the word narcissist in many ways is as much of a pop culture word as empath is. And so what I would say is that I think that for me, and I'm speaking not as a clinician, I'm just speaking as a human being who's witnessed relationships. What I would say is that I think that the difference between a narcissist, like somebody with a clinical narcissism, versus somebody who's somewhat self-absorbed is, for one thing, I think people who are somewhat self-absorbed generally still have a capacity for understanding or grasping the consequences of their behavior, have an ability to understand and an ability to pivot, like an ability to get feedback and be like, oh, I'm being a jerk. I need to shift my behavior. Whereas when you have somebody who is in that, more of that like textbook, diagnosed as narcissistic personality disorder, one of the traits that seems to be pretty pervasive is the inability to see their own part in it. Everything is, it's always everybody else's fault. It's always something, the world done me wrong. And what's sad is the irony of this is that narcissists are completely self-absorbed. It's all about them all the time, but they often lack, they definitely lack self-awareness. And very often they are like, they just don't see their part in any of it, which is heartbreaking. It's really sad. I also think that where somebody who might have moments of selfishness or moments of being self-absorbed, and like you said, we all do. I mean, this is a culture, influencer culture, social media culture. It makes all of us just like constantly comparing ourselves to other people and constantly going through stuff. But I think that what makes somebody, somebody where they're really over the edge into narcissism also is that they will engage in behavior that is harmful to other people and to themselves, and they just can't help it.
They just can't help it. Nor do they care, and they move on.
Nor do they care.
Right, and I think that's really, really interesting. It's so interesting how the two ends of the spectrum kind of attract each other.
Right. And sometimes, actually, what is funny about empaths is that when an empath is so flooded with the thoughts, feelings, energy, and sensations that are coming from outside of themselves. And what I would say is usually that energy from outside is activating energy inside of us, traumatic experiences, other things, which makes it more intense for us. But the irony is that I have noticed that sometimes when we are in extreme, what I call empathic overwhelm, what ironically happens is we lack the capacity for empathy because we're so worried about, we're so consumed by the intensity of the feelings we have that we sometimes will lack the ability to have empathy for other people. So ironically, sometimes like it's almost like we're talking two sides of the spectrum, but like it's almost like it goes full circle where the empath and the narcissist kind of meet in the back, because in both cases they're so overcome by their own stuff.
Right.
That they can't necessarily, they don't have a lot of room for being able to have perspective about other people's experiences.
Yeah, absolutely. So you talk about like you have this, and I thought this was really interesting because I think this can help all of us empaths or sensitive people if you're not, you know, empath. You know, how do we learn how to, you know, control the sensitivities? And you also talk about, you know, you think it's a curse, but it could be a blessing. So like,
absolutely,
how do we work that into our life?
How do we work that into our life? So I wrote a 380-page book about exactly this. Yeah, and so what I would say is that, you know, it is a process, not a pill. This is something, this is something that really takes time. And I had created what came through for me in terms of having done this work for quite a while is I developed a 5-step system. Yeah. And so the system is we start by recognizing. And before we can even recognize like what's going on, we have to recognize the identity. We have to recognize that we're vulnerable, that we have to recognize that we're empaths and claim that identity and understand what it means. Then we start to recognize that we're feeling out of sorts, that we're feeling disproportionately distressed, even though everything in our life is going completely fine. And then we start recognizing like, oh, I'm feeling something. And we start asking the question and looking at recognizing what's mine, what's not mine. And then for sort of the graduate level of recognize, it starts to be, where is this coming from? What is this about? Is this coming from a past life? Is this coming from ancestral trauma? Is this coming from something going on in the room around me? Is this coming from my own personal experiences that are getting activated or triggered? And so, you know, really being able to identify, and what, you know, I'll give you a sort of Cliff Notes version, which is, and most of the time it's coming from more than one place. You know, most of the time it's both and. The second step is release.
You get into much more detail for those of you listening in her book.
I really do.
Yeah. So you can really get the into the heart of it into the book. Okay, go ahead, finish.
Exactly. So the next step is release, which really has to do with letting go of the stuff that is no longer serving us. And one of the things that once I have recognized that I've taken on something, release can be as simple as a breath. Putting your hands on your heart, inhaling, and then exhaling and releasing your hands and saying, I send this back to where it belongs. But I also love to use EFT, emotional freedom techniques. I think it's one of the most powerful tools for releasing stuff that I've ever found. There's movement, there's journaling, there's dancing, there's walking in nature, there's using any number of energy healing techniques. So there's many, many different ways to release. Then only after we've recognized and released do we come to protect, which is the third step. So a lot of people in kind of the new agey world, you know, if you were taught like I was, the first thing I was taught was just put a ball of light up around you. The problem with this for empaths is that if you've already started to absorb all the thoughts, feelings, energy, and sensations, and you're a psychic sponge that's just carrying all this around, no amount of love and light wrapping around you is gonna like really help. It may keep a little bit of stuff from coming in, but if you're already carrying that stuff, it tends to erode your filters and shields from the inside out. And it also means that you're already in a state of distress. So the reason why protect is not the first step, but is the third step, is that we cannot effectively protect ourselves if we do not recognize ourselves as empaths, and also start being able to recognize what's ours and what's not ours, and release the stuff that is no longer serving us. The way I think of it is, it's kind of like if you took a bath and you didn't, and the bathtub was, you finished the bath and it was just filled with dirty water, and you just pull the shower curtain around the tub without draining the tub, you got a problem going on here.
Right. You don't want to jump back in that bath, right?
You don't want to jump back in that bath, and it's let's just say it's going to start stinking up everything else. So we need to drain the tub. We need to drain the tub before we pull the shower curtain back around. So protect is the third step, and protect is about two things. It's about energetic, psychic, spiritual protection, about establishing better filters and shields and around our energy body so we're not as porous, because most empaths tend to be a lot more porous and a lot more sensitive, like vulnerable to picking things up than average people are. But then also it's about strategic protection. It's about that no that you and I were talking about at the very beginning of this conversation, and really claiming and honoring, not going to do that, not for me. Things like even, turning your phone off at a certain point at night, not responding to the text.
My favorite thing to do. Everybody's like, oh, I know when you have your do not disturb on.
Exactly. It's like, we absolutely need to have moments of do not disturb. And empaths, because the thing is, empaths will often be in a place where they will rush in to rescue because we feel better when other people feel better. And so part of protection is also about learning how to let people stew in their juices and let people live their lives and allow them to feel their feelings without us trying to make it better. And so protect is, like I said, it's both energetic and strategic. The fourth step is connect, because the universe abhors a vacuum. So if we don't want to keep on absorbing negativity and keep on taking on all this stuff, we need to replace it with something better. And so this is about moving away from what one of my mentors calls, I have a wonderful mentor from Scotland, Joanna Hunter, and Joanna talks about the idea of source and void. And, source is like that divine alignment. It's light, it's love, it's possibility. It's knowing that we are immortal, that we are eternal, that we will go on forever, and that all is well in this world, even if it doesn't make any sense to us. Void, on the other hand, is is world-class awfulizing. We're all going to hell in a handbasket. There is nothing but this, and, just getting sucked down into the void. And so connect is really about aligning with divine source and aligning with that higher octave of possibility. And instead of continuously getting sucked back into all of that epidemic of fear and worry and strain that we have on this planet. And then the final step beyond connect is act, because words without works is dead. And in order for us to really live our lives effectively and to go from feeling like having an empathic sensitivity or, and being an empath is a curse to using it as a gift, has to do with learning how to act in new ways, learning how to recognize our purpose, and really, leaning into our mission on this planet, saying yes to what we're here to do. And then we have the ability to use our sensitivity to sense when we're on track. Like the sensitivity almost becomes like this master GPS compass within us that really allows us to know, like, okay, am I on track or am I off track? Am I moving in the right direction? Am I not moving in the right direction? Yeah. And, it's amazing what is possible. And, a lot of people, I think, imagine empaths, like ideal jobs for empaths is like being a healer, being an artist or creator. But I've actually met empaths who were like absolutely spectacular in marketing and sales because they knew exactly what the people wanted and needed. Empaths who are really good in leadership because they know exactly what people want and need. Empaths who are amazing teachers because they can tune into the energy and they can adapt and adjust accordingly. And that's the thing that makes empaths so wonderful, is that once we are in alignment with the gift, generally what happens is it goes from that empathic flooding and that empathic overwhelm to more of an intuitive or psychic knowing and an ability to just be in that state of like knowing without reacting. So we move from reacting to responding.
What's so cool is I want to
say,
say, because we only have a couple minutes, it's like a how-to book. So if you think you're empathic, it's a how-to book. So you want to get empathic mastery. It's like was written. Like I was reading and I was like, okay, yep, me.
Yep.
But you have, like I said, we only have a minute. We could talk forever. You have some resources and tools for people who are listening. And so do you have a gift, or is there people that can reach you, or you're an offer that you're offering people today?
Yes, absolutely. So if people want to jump on over to empathicsensitivity.com, that will get the whole ball rolling, and that will lead you to my guide, which is, the Empathic Safety Guide, which has all kinds of it's like 3 tools for finding calm in the eye of the storm. But also on top of that, it will also give you access to my free Facebook group, where I do monthly master classes, like really juicy master classes on every single full moon. I've got the next one is actually coming up this Saturday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Awesome. And the class is called Clear. And it's all about really being able to recognize how getting muddled and muddied and, where are we mucked up and where are we muddied and where is our mind, where are we not clear? And then we're going to do work on really just kind of cleaning the pool.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. We could go forever.
Melissa, this was so good. We could. Yeah.
All right, guys. Thank you for listening to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa, creating the life you crave. And I'm wishing everyone a wonderful week filled with joy, abundance, and love. Peace.